Do you think people that don't recycle are lazy, selfish, unseemly even? What if I told you that by the end of this video, you might feel differently? Now that's because letting the tap run for a bit isn't necessarily wasting a ton of water. And recycling is not the end-all be-all planet saver that we were promised. I'm going to start with a case of water just to make a point, but you're going to want to stick around to hear why some recycling is actually making things worse. I live up here in the French Alps, and even though I've got basically Evian running out of my tap from a spring about 200 meters up above my chalet, the powers that be pipe that spring, and so I do have to pay for water. So rest assured, I don't leave my faucet on all day just to hear the water running and pretend that I have a babbling brook babbling through my house, because that would be crazy and expensive, mostly expensive, but also crazy. But on hot summer days, I will let the tap run until it is coming out mountain spring cold before filling up a cup. And since my hot water heater was installed way at the other end of my house, I often have to let the tap run kind of for a while to get hot water so that I can wash dishes or my dog or my sensuous naked feet. Like I said, my water comes out of a spring about 200 yards above my house, and when I let it run, it doesn't drain into a sewer system or a water treatment plant. It goes into the septic system in my yard, right down there, and then right back into the water table. So am I wasting water or just temporarily diverting it? And there's no shortage of water up here. I know this because in France, every town mayor is legally liable for the safety of their town. So if you get sick drinking from a public fountain like this one, then Mayor Frenchietown can get fined or even go to jail for negligence. So that's why all the fountains now, they're starting to have these signs on them that basically say, it's not our responsibility. The water's not tested, or not potable, or not potato. I don't know. They can't spell very well. So anyway, when I want to drink from a fountain like this, first time I came up to this one, which is right above my house, I ignored the sign and I just asked a local. And so, a 90-year-old French lady told me, well, basically a lot of stuff in French, but what it translated to was that this fountain is just a runoff, or the extra, from the spring that they piped in up a little bit higher above this hamlet, and which feeds my house. So incidentally, what's the difference between this public fountain running all day and my tap? It's the same water, briefly coming out of and then quickly returning straight into the same water table. Now you may say, why question it? Why not just follow the generally good principle of don't waste water? Well, the way I see it, when we don't question things and think for ourselves, we leave ourselves wide open to manipulation. And believe you me, there are people that are going to take advantage of that. Let's take a look at another widely accepted truism. Recycling is super good. Super good. Super good. Recycling is super good. In some cases, one in particular, that's not only bullshit, it's actually making things worse. Let me explain. Metal and glass can basically be infinitely recycled. That means they can be melted down, remolded into something else, and still be of really high quality. Plastics, not so much. Legos, the people that make those little bricks that kids make stuff out of and that we step on, they have recently announced that they have abandoned plans to try and make their bricks out of recycled plastics after 3 years of testing and trying to make it work, because they say that the production process with recycled plastics would actually be more polluting than the current process, and that the resulting bricks would be of lower quality. That's because plastic isn't really recyclable. They actually call it downcycling. And that's because after being transformed only once, the resulting product is of such inferior quality that it can't be recycled again, and now it is definitively waste. But it gets so much worse. Only 9% of plastics are actually recycled or downcycled. 9%. The other 91%, the vast majority of everything that we're putting into those recycling bins every week, ends up just like all the other garbage. Burned, buried, dumped in the ocean with the dolphins and the sea turtles. Poor little sea turtles. But what about that little recycling logo with a number in it that you see on all plastics? Well, the thing is, that's not a recycling logo. The Society of the Plastics Industry, which is of course a real thing that exists, started using that in 1988 as a fun and deceiving way just to label different kinds of plastic. It in no way means that those plastics that we're sorting every week are recyclable, because most of them just aren't. An NPR investigative report from 2020 found that industry officials misled the public about the recyclability of plastics, even though their own reports showed that they knew plastics could not be economically recycled as early as the 1980s. That means these people were literally wearing acid-wash jeans and listening to Safety Dance when they decided to lie to the public about plastic recycling. 'Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine. So why go to all this trouble to convince everybody that recycling is so fantastic? Well, basically, if you put the focus on recycling, it makes the problem that they created our responsibility to fix. As we go around shaming people for not recycling, they get to keep on creating this garbage that's choking the planet. And let's face it, we get to go on feeling good about putting plastics dutifully in the right bin, instead of facing the fact that by buying this stuff, we're actually part of the problem and not part of the solution. The short answer is that it's just easier for everybody if we focus on the wrong part of the logo. Recycling, while accessible and easy, is not the best option for environmental health. Of the 3 R's, it is actually the least environmentally friendly. The only real solution is to consume less, and that means reduce and reuse. And we're gonna have to do it ourselves, because as an unhappy little girl from Sweden once said, "There is hope, I have seen it, but it does not come from government or corporations. It comes from the people." And that same Nordic Cassandra, I think, also said, hit that like button, subscribe, watch this video next, and you should probably go now so that I can go chase squirrels.